Welcome to Season 2 of Unformed podcast. This time it looks a little bit different. So much has changed from behind the scenes, but the heart of Unformed remains always the same. Stephan, welcome to Unformed podcast. I am very happy to have you in the studio with me today. As I was telling you earlier, when I first started the Unformed podcast, I really wanted to have guests on this podcast who inspired me through my journey in different stages. And you were one of those individuals who kept popping up on my Instagram feed constantly. And at some point, you were really inspiring me to push and run more. And I was looking up to you in different stages, especially in the ultra running, different ultra runs that you have done, and the 7-day challenge, which we will get to through the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm honored.
What got you to start running in the first place?
That's a really good question. So running for me growing up was always a punishment because it was part of the sports that I was playing, but more in a negative connotation, right? So I was a tennis player growing up, and when we were late, we would have to run laps. If we talked back to our coach, we would have to run laps. So it was never something that we enjoyed. But then I took over the running division for Nike way back. I think this was 2015. And I just didn't understand running culture at that point. And because I was leading the running division, I wanted to understand. So I started immersing myself in Nike Run Club at the time, the different races that we organized, and really understanding the mindset of the consumer at that point. And it kind of got me hooked. I started then running 5Ks and 10Ks, and then ultimately 21, 42, and then the ultra runs.
Normally they say when you first start running, it's never enjoyable. So when did you feel like you started to enjoy doing that? So you told me you started 5K, 10K, but were they, were you looking forward to that runs? And when does this happen normally? You start looking forward to the runs that you're doing?
I think it's different for everyone. I was lucky because I was quite fit already. I've been an athlete since I was 4 years old. I've played sports all my life. So for me, at least I had that component set, because I think when someone is not used to sport or fitness and just gets into it, that journey takes a lot longer. So for me, the enjoyment started happening, I think once I finished my first few races, where you get that runner's high after you cross the finish line. At that point, I was also aiming for specific times for the 5K and the 10K. And when you hit those times, it's obviously very rewarding. We were speaking about this offline just now. It's definitely an ego-driven thing versus anything else, but it still feels good to reach those goals. I think it only came later when you start doing longer runs and it becomes a lot more meditative. It becomes, you switch off while you're running and you get into a rhythm and you get into a zone. That took quite a few years. I think that took a good 5-6 years before I got into that and used running as a positive escape from daily life.
Talking about the ego that you referred to and we were discussing offline, why do you think more trying to reach certain times or break certain or reach certain paces is a matter of ego? You were just telling me you don't track your runs in terms of distances and time. You go more by running, you block yourself different blocks of time you run. Why do you think it's a matter of ego?
I think if you're a professional athlete, it's different, because if you're a professional runner, time is important, because that means you're competing, right? You're competing and you're trying to win. I think if you're an everyday runner and you're trying to reach a sub-3 marathon or a sub-4 marathon or whatever it may be, I just feel like you're comparing yourself probably to other people and you're looking for some sort of external validation. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I have a lot of my friends who are aiming to do a sub-3, and it's a super impressive
It's just a way of looking at things differently.
Totally.
Probably.
I think it's a super impressive thing if you can do it, and you have to reach a certain level of fitness. So it's something to work towards, and you grow as an athlete in that time frame. But I think the overlying reason to go for a specific time, unless you're a professional athlete and your livelihood depends on it, it's probably an ego-driven thing.
When you were talking about running, you were talking about 5K and 10K, but now you're an ultra runner. How did you transition from running as, let's say, a hobby at the beginning or get a bit of interest in running to becoming an ultra runner now?
In 2018, I ran the Beirut Marathon, and that was my first and only marathon that I've run. And it was very difficult, but when I crossed the finish line, I thought there's got to be something else out there that's even longer than this. And I was really curious to explore that. So then a few years later, I signed up for a 100-kilometer run, which I did, I think at this point, 2.5 or 3 years ago. And I just got hooked into that space because for me, again, personally, I enjoy longer, slower runs, and I enjoy covering a long distance because it gets me into a certain mindset, but it's also highly uncomfortable. And it's helped me grow as a person. Requires a lot of discipline, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of willpower. And as soon as I ran that first 100K, that's when I was like, okay, ultra running is going to be my thing now. And since then, I've never really looked back.
For everyone watching, ultra running is, I think it's divided into different stages, and correct me if I'm wrong. Officially, it's any running distance on foot that is longer than a marathon,
Correct.
Which is 42.1 kilometers. And then there's like the beginning threshold where you need to pass that 50 kilometer. But then after the 50 kilometer, you go for a 50 mile, if I'm not mistaken.
There's different.
How does it work?
There's just different distances now at this point where it's become a little bit more unofficial. But officially, you're right. It's anything longer than a marathon. And so on paper, if you're running 43 kilometers, you're officially running an ultra. But
another 100 kilometers.
Yeah, but now these races are going up to anywhere to 400, 500K, multi-day races, single-day races. So there's so many different types.
For someone to become an ultra runner, it requires a lot of discipline. How does this look like to you? And how long or how much discipline does it require for someone not only to run the marathon, to run something much harder?
I think a few points on this. So the first thing it requires is patience. I think a lot of people hear ultramarathon and they want to do it in like 2 months, right? Or like 4 months or whatever it may be. When I trained for the 100K, I trained for a year.
Okay. And you're originally a runner, so...
Yeah, and I had already a bit of running experience, but like I wanted to do it right and I wanted to take my time with it because like throughout that training journey, God forbid you get a little bit sick or you get injured or whatever else it is. Like you need to account for all these different things. The second thing is regarding the discipline and the sacrifice piece. I think both kind of go hand in hand. You can't have it all, right? When you want to do ultra running, you can't also, go out on a Friday night, and you can't also, be social and play another sport and this and that. And I've had a lot of friends who got into the ultra space thinking they could do that, and it just doesn't work. So you have to sacrifice a lot of things because ultra running versus maybe other distances, it just requires a lot of time, right? Like when we go out for long runs, they're 5-6 hours. They're not, 30 minutes or 60 minutes. So like it does require a lot of time. That time eats into potentially time with friends or family or other forms of, social enjoyment. So that's kind of what it looked like for me in the beginning. It just required me to be like, okay, if you want to run this 100K, certain things have to go. And
it's a serious block in your day. It's not a 1 hour gym session that
totally.
You can let it pass through.
Yeah, and especially the weekends, right? Like we were just talking about it. I ran yesterday, I ran this morning, and like I was in bed by 7 p.m. on Friday and was in bed by 9 p.m. yesterday. So I don't have that social life that maybe other people have, but I love it. Like I choose that. And now I'm very lucky that we've kind of built a community around running and ultra running here, which I get my social time in the mornings now versus in the evenings like I used to.
When you were talking about running, you told me that at some point you reached those instances where you were only blocking everything else block yourself from everything else that is around you. And this is something that I experienced with running at some point, but it was so uncomfortable.
Why?
Because at some point you, especially when you're going through a lot in life, you actually run away from your thoughts and you run away from those things that always go in your head. And when I started running, and especially long distances, I had to face them.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can distract yourself to get out of your mind. It's like I feel running kind of pushes you to face those thoughts and kind of push through them, because if you think about it, you can't speak to someone when you're running. And yeah, okay, if you're running a zone 2 that is a social, sure, but generally when you're really running like half marathon or like 10K or 15K and you're trying to push yourself a little bit through it, there's nowhere else to escape. It's you and your mind. And I found this the most uncomfortable part of running. I don't know what are your thoughts on this, but it kind of put me in a space where what I was running away from, I had to face. My thoughts, my fears, my insecurities, my everything.
100%. So I think firstly, as a society, we're so distracted, right? So when we're going through our day-to-day lives and a difficult thought enters our head, we have the ability to distract ourselves immediately with, our phone and Instagram and WhatsApp, or like Netflix, or having a conversation or listening to music. But there's always an escape. Like there's always an ability to get out of that facing of the difficult thought. I think when you're running, listen, if you're listening to music or podcast, yes, fine, you're distracting yourself. If you're having a conversation, you're distracting yourself. But if you're running by yourself without music and you're running for a long time, you have to face the demons that are in your head, right? And we've heard this so many times in the last few months, where we have people within our community that are finally running like longer distances. And one of the guys came up to me and he's like, I just have demons chasing me every single time. And I'm like, you got to turn around and face them, right? Like it's the only way. You have to just go through it. It's the same thing as long meditation sessions. Like difficult thoughts are going to come up. Things are going to arise, and you have to sit with it. It's uncomfortable, but that's where growth lies, right? Like things also start making sense, I feel like, when you're running. So there might be very difficult situations in your life that you're dealing with, but the more you sit with them or the more you run with them, the more clear it becomes what the potential solution would be to that. And it might be extremely difficult in the beginning, and then it just starts getting a little bit easier.
And I feel it's like a different kind of therapy, because in normal therapy sessions, you're able to have a conversation with someone where it's an input and an output. But when I was running and I had to face those thoughts, there was no way out. The only way out was for me to figure out myself how to stop feeling that. So you get a specific feeling or a thought that keeps popping up, and you understand that this is why I'm always annoyed. This is why I do what I do. I'm just giving you examples. And then at some point you feel like I'm not able to have any output from anyone, but how can I get to a point where I stop feeling that? And this is where it's like a totally different kind of therapy, where you figure out yourself how to heal yourself at some point during that really long run. So
yeah, and I think like when points come up consistently, it also just shows the urgency of you needing to deal with that, right? And like there's so many thoughts and things that we try to escape from, and when you're running or when you're sitting with it, you're forced to deal with it. And I kind of love that.
During an ultra run, it's not only the demons that chase you, but it's also your body trying to tell you to stop at some point. So there's like the pain cave that you hit.
Yeah.
How do you train yourself to overcome those ultramarathons? So what is the emotional or the mental practice that happens before you start the run? Or it doesn't have to be immediately, but like through the months of preparation.
So the first thing is to just control the controllables. So there's a lot within training that you can control, which would be your food intake, your hydration, your recovery, like the basic things within running, like pre-ultra and then during the ultra. Like you need to have a strategy in place in terms of, okay, how many electrolytes am I going to have? How many carbs? How many this? How many that? Which will make you feel a certain way, right? Because if you're dehydrated and you're hungry, it's going to impact your mental health during that run. So making sure that that's all ticked off, fantastic. Regardless, after a certain amount of time, let's say you're running 100 kilometers, after 70, 80 kilometers, it's going to get really hard, physically and mentally. And for me, I have like a lot of different tricks that I use just to play mind games on myself in a positive way. But the main thing I always tell myself is, unless I break something or snap something, I'm not stopping, right? Because like it's very easy to give yourself an out or to give yourself an excuse. Like I was running with someone and they had like a stomach cramp, and I'm like, it's just pain. Like there's nothing, like nothing's gonna happen.
Wow.
Right? You just need to get through it. And it's about pain. It's about being able to tolerate that pain for a long time. And there can be situations where it's serious, like especially like in Dubai, right? Like with the heat and heat stroke and these sort of things, which I've had way too many times. But those are things we need to be careful with. But outside of that, I think it's just about like eliminating excuses, telling yourself it's just pain, and understanding that you have to have the mind tell the body what to do, not the body tell the mind what to do, right? Because it's very easy to be like, oh, my knee. And then now all of a sudden it's in your head that your knee hurts. And then you're going to start making that an excuse.
Happens.
Yeah, that's what happens. But that's the most common thing, right? So for me, it's really like, if I feel like something's broken in my body or I feel like I've snapped my hamstring, I'm going to stop because there's just no point of continuing. But if I have a cramp or I have a discomfort somewhere or whatever it may be, I'm not going to, like, that's not a reason to stop running for something that I've trained for, you know, for a year or for more than a year. If it happens during training and I think, okay, if I don't stop running, then, you know, I might not be able to train tomorrow or the day after, I'll stop. That, because there's a difference between training and like race day, right? Like within training, I don't have that extreme mentality because I'm aiming for the long game. So my coach always told me in training, if the pain is above, I think, a 4 out of 10 and it lasts for more than 15 minutes, then stop. But if that same pain happens in, you know, the 100 miles I'm going to do in February, I'm not stopping. Like there's no way, because
Speak
that's what I'm
about
training
that
for.
so easily. Although it takes so much mental strength to do that.
I think it takes practice. I don't think it's necessarily like when people look at me and they think it's an impressive thing to run 100K, sure. But honestly, most people can do it if they apply themselves, right? And they're patient with themselves and they just go through the motions and they have a good training program and they put in the work. It's not that I've been running ultras all my life, but I have been running for the last 10 years, right? So it's not overnight. This has taken time. And now I'm at a point where I continue to raise the bar for my personal challenges. So every time I do something, it's going to have to be bigger than the last thing. That goes back to ego. That's 100% an ego thing. That has nothing to do with anything else. But I want to understand what I'm capable of doing physically. I want to understand where my limit is because I haven't hit it yet.
I kind of disagree a bit on the ego part.
Why?
Because I feel that, yeah, sure, it has a bit to do with the ego, but also it has to do with the idea that you believe in your body much more. And it kind of happens to me sometimes where you finish your first big milestone and then you want to hit another one because you feel you have more belief in your body that, okay, if I'm able to do that, I want to see what more I'm able to do. And this happens only to not to everyone. It's not for everyone, and it's totally fine. But a lot of the individuals who aim to do more and more and more, it's not. I don't agree that it's necessarily ego. It's more, I'm so curious to see if I can do that. And if I did a half marathon, can I run a marathon? And what would happen to me? Because the half marathon was already a big challenge, and in my mind I never thought that I would actually pass the finish line of a half marathon. So at some point I looked and I said, okay, what if I sign up for a full marathon? This is just an example, but even in weights, in everything that I do. So yes, somehow it has a bit to do with the ego, but as you said, it's
combination of things.
It's like, what am I really capable of doing that I'm not actually doing at the moment?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Do you ever feel that, like, you sit with yourself and you say, okay, am I reaching my full potential at the moment, or am I can try to do another one?
This is actually my absolute curse, is that question, because I look at it. So for me, it's not just training, it's work, it's business, it's this delusional ambition that I have, or drive that I have in life, where I literally wrote this caption last night where I said my biggest fear is not to fulfill my potential. And so I do whatever I can to not put myself in that situation. And it often comes at a price, right? Like excellence or achievement or greatness or whatever you want to call it, like comes at a price. It's not greatness if everyone does it, right? Extraordinary results only come through extraordinary effort. So it's a good quality that I have, but it's also like a quality that I'm personally working on a lot, where I'm trying to give myself more space, and I'm trying to give myself rest and breaks. Because for me, whenever I rest, I feel guilty, because I'm like, I'm not fulfilling my potential. But then at the same time, like, if your cup's empty, then how are you going to pour, right? Or how are you going to do anything if you're burnt out, or if you're exhausted all the time, or whatever it may be. And so I'm personally trying to find that balance currently, where before I might have been just 100%, 110%, always on, go, 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 go. And I still am most of the time. I'm just trying to like now slot in space and time to reflect and time to rest and spend time with people that I love.
Yeah. I hear that, because also I kind of share very similar thoughts and beliefs, but also this delusion that you live in, I kind of love it. I know it's a curse, but it kind of really works for me as well. So when I wanted to run, I read a book, and it says that you need to embody who you want to be before you actually reach who you 100%. Want to be. And it kind of stuck in my head, and I started calling myself a runner. And I had people around me who are very close to me, but they were coming and telling me, like, you're living in a delusion. Like, it's so delusional. You were never able to run as a kid. Stop referring to yourself as a runner, because you're not. People will laugh at you. And I'm like, no, I'm a runner. And I kept showing up at the gym to keep on running. And yes, it was disastrous. Like, talking about pace, like for me, zone 2 is almost walking because of my heart condition. But funny enough, I went and I was buying those amazing shoes, and I'm like, guys, don't talk to me. I have my slow run today and all of that, my long run. And at some point when I reached and I crossed that finish line of the half marathon, I went out, and everything that I was crying, of course, passing through that finish line, because it kind of hit me in the face, like, oh, I did run it. Like, I am somehow a runner, 100%. That I actually finished the half marathon. But then I went out and I'm like, so actually I can call myself a runner. I'm not running every day, but I'm still a runner at some point. So this delusion has its positives and the negatives. It does push you sometimes to burnouts, but I feel I feel that I'm really lucky to have that delusion sometimes, because you really need it at certain points to achieve things that are a little bit far or impossible.
Yeah. And you, in your journey, people are going to they're going to call you crazy, and they're going to be like, oh, you're not this or you're not that. But it's only crazy until you do it, right? Mm-hmm. Or it's only delusional until you achieve it, or people will ridicule you until you're like, hey, look what I did.
Exactly.
And so I think once you prove that to yourself once or twice, right, like you have and like I have, then all of a sudden you don't see it that way anymore. Like, I don't really care about the opinions of other people, but that's relatively recent. But it's just because like I've trusted myself with the ability to get certain things done and to achieve certain things that before people would have laughed at me, or they would have been like, that's not possible, or you shouldn't do that, or you should focus your time on this or on that. But instead you followed your gut and your instinct, and it works.
You were mentioning in the runs that you have different tricks to kind of play mental games.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to know them, because a lot of the times I try to tell myself, like, no, I'm not going to stop. No, I'm not going to stop until I'm injured. No. But it's so hard. What are the mental tricks that you do at the end of the run when you're in a pain cave and you can't push anymore, or you believe that you're not able to push anymore physically?
Yeah. So I'll give you maybe 2 or 3. So the first one is I count my steps. So just 1, 2, 3, 4 until 8, and then 8 or 10 sometimes, and then I'll start again. Because it completely just distracts you from the pain. The second one, which was given to me by a friend of mine before the Beirut Marathon, actually, she said, when things get hard, and they will get hard the last 10 kilometers or so, every kilometer, think of a person that you love, and then keep them in your mind.
Wow.
Right? And then all of a sudden, like, it's emotion, right? Like, you get emotional, but you're completely distracted again from the pain. And another thing I do, which is like a strange one, is on the way to a run, I'll listen to one song over and over and over and over again. So I'll listen to the same song like 10 times. And then that song will be my song of the run. And whenever things get hard, I'll just play that song in my head. So those are the 3 that usually help me quite a bit. Yeah.
That's amazing. Stephan, can you take me through your ultra runs, because you've done a couple.
Yeah.
It was the 100 kilometers run. That was a 1 day, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where was that?
So that was in Chianti in Italy. Mm-hmm. So it was in Tuscany, effectively. So I think it took us like 20 hours to complete it. But it was all mountains, all uphill, downhill. So there was a lot of effort involved. That's for sure. It took quite some time for us to finish it, but it was one of the most beautiful and rewarding experiences that I've had.
Yeah, and I honestly, at the beginning when I started running, I couldn't understand or put in perspective how long is the distance until I opened Google Maps and I was trying to understand it.
Yeah.
And I really recommend everyone watching to just put Google Maps and try to understand how long is 100 kilometers. Because 100 kilometers is like, 100 kilometers. But then try to put it on Google and imagine yourself running all of that. So the airport of Sharjah to the airport of Dubai, not even the Terminal 3, it's to Al Maktoum airport is like 64 kilometers. So like a little bit more than half of what you ran.
It's interesting because it's interesting you say that. Like, one of the things that I tell people who are aiming for like a distance that they've never done before is that it becomes a lot more achievable the closer you get to the race, right? So when you first start training for a marathon, for instance, you'll start running 4K, 5K, 6K, and you'll probably run 2 or 3 times a week. And the goal or the idea of running a 21K, for instance, is already so far removed, right? Even if you're training for a marathon. But then when you start putting in the work, and then all of a sudden after 3-4 months, you're running 10, 12, 14K. Then all of a sudden you're running 21. Then you're running a 30K. And then all of a sudden this 10K that was very difficult for you to run 2 months ago is now an average run for you, right? And that's what I mean by patience. And that's just a 3-4 month training period. I trained for 12 for the 100K. And I was in the mountains every Saturday, right? And I was putting in the work, and I was training, and I was doing whatever I needed to do. And when you then get to race day, 100K was still obviously a very long distance, but you go there with a certain confidence of, I've put in so much work and I've covered so many kilometers over the last 12 months. Like, I couldn't be more ready for this, right? And I have a coach who's coached many people who have run 100 or more, who knows exactly what he's doing. And he's given me a schedule that has proven successful. And I trust him, and I trust the schedule, and I trust the whole process. And so, to anyone listening, yes, it seems like a lot, and it is. But it's also just like understanding how to get there. Like we train people for 21K and 42K now. And when I first spoke to them as a group of whatever, 30, 40 people, I could see the fear in their eyes, right? Like I could see this thing of like, oh my God, like I've never run a distance like this before. But I'm like, just wait, just trust that the time investment that you've now allocated and the training that you're going to put in, as long as you stick to the training program, you're going to be totally fine. And that's with any distance. Like if you want to run 300K in 3 years, you'll be able to do it. You just have to put in
the work,
and it has to be intentional and it has to be professional. And yeah.
After you ran the 100K, you moved to which ultramarathon?
777.
Okay. This is a topic that I really love. And this is also what introduced me to you on social. Can you take me through the 777? To everyone who is watching, who doesn't know what it is,
sure.
Please take them through what you have done and why you have done it.
So the story behind 777 is also funny because like I finished the ultra in Italy. The next day I couldn't move my entire body, not just my legs. Like I couldn't lift my arms. I couldn't do anything. And we made the mistake of having to check out of our hotel the morning after the race. So like at 9 a.m. we were like packing our stuff, and we had to take a taxi to Florence and then a train to Rome and then walk around in Rome to go to our hotel. And it was probably one of the worst days ever. But while I was sitting in the train, and this is one of the sick things that happens when you're an ultra runner, is I was like, what's next? Like, what are we doing next? And the first thought that came to mind was like, I want to do something at home, which is the UAE. And I want to do something with people because I trained alone for the 100K and it was a very lonely journey. So I want to have a community around it. And so I was like 7 ultra marathons. So 50 kilometers a day for 7 days in the 7 Emirates. So we started in Abu Dhabi, we then went to Fujairah, and then we worked our way back to Dubai and finished in Dubai. And it was seven people, ironically. And it was such a beautiful, beautiful journey. I think we trained for about 10 months. This is also where our community run started. We told our coach, we were like, can we have 1 run per week? That's not that serious. Because all our runs were like super intense, and then we had like strength training and mobility and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, if we want to run with our friends and with our family, can we have 1 day per week where it's not that serious? So he was like, Thursday morning, you can have whatever, at 7 a.m. you can do that.
This is where the Thursday morning started. So like we would then invite people to come and join us. And then what started with, I think 8 people in the beginning grew to, at the end of our 777 training, to about 60, 70 people. And yeah, so that was really beautiful. We also raised money for the refugee crisis in Sudan at that point, together with the UNHCR. So that was a really important part for us. We also raised money for Palestine a few times. Like we did a few different events. Giving back for us was really important. And our slogan really for 777 was that we're very privileged to run by choice while people are forced to run, right, from their homes or from their families or from their countries. So that was a big part of what 777 was about, and raising awareness around that. But raising awareness for me is great, but like, can you do something tangible? So we managed to raise, I think it was 110,000 dirhams or something like that for Sudan. So yeah, that's the story of 777. Wow. When you run the 777, which is I think around 350 kilometers,
yeah.
How do you train your mind to what your body is able to endure? When you start running the first day, you need enough recovery and enough motivation or enough willingness to go back and do it the second day. And it's 50 kilometers every single day. So how were the preparations? And when you are with other people as well, so you mentioned you were 7, did that help you as well to kind of motivate each other?
Yeah. So firstly, with our training program, like our training was done in a way where like we would run a 50K on a Saturday and then run a 20K on a Sunday, so that we get used to running on tired legs, and we get used to running when we're tired, period, right? And when you really don't want to run, like you go out and you run. So I think from a training standpoint, we did that in a really solid way. The second thing is during the 7 days itself, we had a really good support system. So the routes were all very clearly marked. We had a hotel. We had buses that took us from, one place to the other. We had ice baths with us. We had physios with us. We would eat, a lot, as you can imagine. And we would try and rest as much as we could in between finishing the race, checking out of the hotel, like checking into the new hotel, and then going to sleep. Like, we had a pretty strict schedule in that sense, which was really just based around recovering as much as we could and then preparing for the next day. But again, like, you wake up at 3:00 in the morning and like my bed would be drenched in sweat because my body's so inflamed. I would have to force feed myself breakfast. I could barely like make it to the hotel lobby, and on day 4, then you have to run 50K. And there were times, there was only one time for me where I was like, oh God, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And it was, I think, in Umalquain, the first 10 kilometers, like, I just felt my body just not warming up. Like my body was just tight and my muscles just nothing felt right. But then eventually, it's this thing of like your mind telling your body, like, this is what we do. Like, we're running and there's nothing else we're going to do. And by days 6 and 7, it's weird to say, but it's almost like your body's expecting it. You almost get into this habit of like, okay, cool. Like, this is what we do now. We run every day for 50K. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of guys who run 30 marathons in 30 days, or, a friend of mine did 100 Ironman in 100 days. Like, at a certain point, your body starts adjusting. And it's funny because even if you look at like wearables where you measure the calories that you burn, you become a lot more efficient over time. So on day 1, you might burn 5,000 calories, but on day 7, we're burning 3, because your body's becoming more efficient. And that's why the beautiful thing about the human body, right? I think that's what I'm so interested about, is like pushing that limit as far as I can and understanding where that limit lies. Because 777 wasn't it for me, for sure. Like,
what was the most humbling moment during those 7 days?
The most humbling moment. I think the most humbling moment was getting through like that most difficult period of that first 10 kilometers in Umalquain, which was day 4, I think. And it was really like, mentally, you're like, we're not even at the halfway point yet. Like, only in day 4, midway through, would you be at the halfway point, right? In the first 10 kilometers, I was like, how am I going to do another 3 days after this? And also just finish this day. Like, and it was funny because most of us ran together, right? The 7 of us. And first few days we were pretty chatty and like we would be talking to each other. And like that day, I'm like, guys, just please don't talk to me. Like, I need to get through this myself. And I really don't want to be distracted. Like, I just need to deal with this. I think that was the most humbling, but also humbling and difficult at the same time.
How did it feel to cross the finish line after those 7 days? In these specific challenges that you set yourself to, do you look at yourself differently after you finish it?
So for both the 100K and with 777, I felt limitless when you cross the finish line. Like, you feel like you can do anything. But at the same time, it's not a euphoric moment. With the 100K, I was exhausted. I was like, just get me to bed. Like, I'm done. With 777, what was beautiful is because we finished in Dubai, and we finished at Fields, which is like where we start our Thursday morning runs. And we had, 200 people there, like welcoming us back. Like, super grateful for that. But again, it wasn't a euphoric moment. we were just exhausted. Like we were so tired. So with ultra running, it's slightly different than when you're running like a 10K or 42K in just one day, right? Yeah.
And I'm just interested in how did the recovery go from there?
So for 777, it was just so weird because like I think for the next week or 2 weeks, I would wake up at 3 a.m. like wired, thinking that I would have to run that day. And it was
Crazy.
almost like nightmares, by the way. Like it was almost like in a negative way, where it wasn't a positive emotion. It was like anxiety. I was like, oh my God, I have to, and I'd be sweating, you know? So that's one thing. The other thing that people don't realize is because you've been at this heart rate level for 7 days where you're in zone 2, 3, 4, 5, your nervous system is so switched on and your body's under so much stress that it takes a long time for that. And I'm talking about like 3-4 weeks to just really calm down again. And I had that after the 100K as well, where my coach told me, he's like, no running for a month. Like, don't get your heart rate up. Just let the body naturally recover. And so I would be having a conversation with someone at like 2 p.m. and all of a sudden I'm just like crashing. So the recovery is more mental in that sense. Like it's more energy level driven versus physically I was fine. Like I was totally okay. It was just the mental part.
Would you do it again?
777, no. Because like now I'm moving on to bigger things and I want to just see what else I'm capable of. And that's going back to what I was saying earlier, right? Where I don't typically do the same distance twice. I'll do it and then I'll see, okay, what's bigger than this that I can do? And then I'll do that and then I'll keep moving on until I hit a wall and hit a limit.
You recently also finished a High Rocks competition.
Yeah.
How did that go? It was an open mail High Rocks, is it?
Yeah, I just did it for
fun.
I just did it for fun. I didn't really do it to compete because it's a very different world. But I knew that because I was a runner that I have not an advantage, but at least like I'm 50% there. And I wanted to work on my strength a bit and wanted to get stronger. I wanted to experience what High Rocks was.
How did it feel like as an experience? Because for me, when I did the High Rocks, it was just challenging on all levels, but specifically the runs, because you run a good 8K through the race. And since you are a really good runner, for you, it should you are at a very high advantage than any other person who is not as good as running like me. So how did it feel like as an experience overall?
It was very challenging because like the activities in between the runs really impact the runs, right? I'm used to running. So like having to push 150 kg sled and then run, or do rowing and skiing and then run was really difficult for me. But I really enjoyed it. And so, the euphoric moment that you don't get in ultras, you definitely get it in High Rocks. Like when you finish it in an hour and whatever, then there's that moment of like real joy and, but you can still go about your day and you're still going to be fine. And you sleep well and you're good to go again the next morning. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Stephan, you are the director of WHOOP in the GCC.
Yeah.
What attracted you to the company? Is it an athlete interest or is it a business vision?
I think it's both. So I've been wearing WHOOP for about 8 years and I've only been working with them for a year and a bit. So I've always admired the brand. I've always admired the founder a lot and his backstory on like how the product and the company was built. But I've also just used it as much as I could have for such a long time. And it's really impacted and helped me with my training, my well-being, my sleep in particular. Like I was already kind of a good sleeper. I've always slept like 7-8 hours, but just getting more quality sleep and really understanding like when I should push in training and when I should just like kind of dial it back.
What metric do you normally track the most in WHOOP?
I don't think there's one that I track the most because I look at quite a few, but like I would look at HRV and recovery quite a bit. Then I would look at my sleep stages a lot as well. And then my strain just in terms of like just making sure I'm not overreaching and overexerting myself, which is so easy to do. So those are probably the main ones that I look at. Recently, I've also started looking at stress a lot more because in Whoop, there's activity stress and there's non-activity stress. And in the beginning, my non-activity stress was quite high and I didn't understand why. So again, creating that space, right, that I was talking about earlier has helped me reduce that non-activity stress as much as possible.
Honestly, when I started using my Whoop, I was facing a dilemma of, should I be taken so much with the data or should I follow my intuition? You know what I mean? At some point, I was looking at my recovery and I'm like, oh, I have like 30% recovery today, but I mean, I'm feeling fine. It's not that bad. So how do you deal with that? Are you very data driven with Whoop, or you think that it depends on every person and how they're feeling? So how much of that is trusting your body, how it feels?
Yeah. There's certain points where my recovery score is not going to dictate my day. So if I race, for instance, irrespective, I probably won't even look at my recovery score before a race because it's going to be irrelevant because I'm going to give it everything. But if I'm running yesterday, for instance, like I had a long run and if my recovery was horrible, I would probably not go as hard as I usually would. And the reason for that is because I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get injured, right? Like, and Whoop, I feel like is a really good indicator of where you're heading. But I think the most important thing is like, don't let it dictate your day. So your mood and the way you feel and how you go about it, but let it guide you in terms of, okay, you're in the red today. Like maybe you should take it a little bit easier, right? Maybe you should focus on recovery modalities. Maybe you should drink a little extra water or maybe get a good night's sleep. Doesn't mean you shouldn't work out. Doesn't mean you shouldn't train, but it just means that like, you don't have to go your usual 110% if you're clearly not ready for it.
That's a very good way to put it. So it doesn't dictate if you would go out there and work out or get what you planned done, but it's more of how hard you would go on that workout or on that run that day.
Totally.
I want to speak about the Uncommon Club. Why did you start that club specifically?
So that was the result of 777. So 777, we finished in February last year. And we now had this community of people, right? We had probably 60, 70 people that were showing up week after week. And my big thing was like, after 777, I don't want to let this community just like fade away. I want to continue to build it and continue to grow it. And one of the things that I found very important is if we grow it, let's do it very intentionally and let's ask the community what they want and what they want to see from, at that point, 777, which we then rebranded to the Uncommon Club. And it was interesting. People said they wanted technique sessions, so they wanted to learn how to run properly, which is obviously very important if you're training for things. Social events were at the top of the list, talks and workshops. And the talks and workshops we do and have been doing are around performance, but they're also around mental health. So like different types of topics. And then the last thing was training programs. Like people are like, oh, well, you guys have, done all this stuff. Like we also want to run our first 5K or a marathon or whatever. And so that's what we then built. We basically said the Thursday mornings will be free forever. And that is now, 200 people every Thursday versus the 50, 60 that we had with 777. But now we also have, different tiers of membership that people can get involved in. And it's been great to see. We have a lot of people training for an ultra now. I think we have about 35 people traveling to New Zealand with us in February. We have a bunch of people doing Burj to Burj, Dubai Marathon. And the running coach that has trained me for the last 10 years is the person programming all these training sessions. But then we also have strength. And then we also have mobility. We have a lot of in-person sessions. So it's really become kind of a bigger ecosystem within running outside of just being a run club.
It's like you're giving the members the tools to actually do it
totally.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
100%.
I really want to know more about the community of the Uncommon Club, because one of my guests in season 1, he was talking about his story, and he was overweight, and he was facing, he endured a heart attack. And from that specific situation, he moved to running, and he started running. And now he goes around different countries to finish specific marathons or different marathons. And it's amazing to see, honestly, how, again, the human body can change in that sense. But one story that he told me, it stuck in my head. It was that when he was still a beginner in running, and he was 130 kilos almost, he joined the running club, and he was trying to run. This was like probably 10 years ago or almost. He started to run with a community, and there was this shame that I am really big and everyone is so athletic. What am I doing here? And he told me the only thing that kept him going, and those are small acts in different communities across Dubai, and specifically in a really good running community. He told me it was supposed to be an easy run, so everyone was running, and they were almost jogging and having discussions when they were running, and he was the only one who was slower than everyone else, and he couldn't push through. And he told me everyone was talking, and I was out of breath. I was the last one there. I was trying my best because I really wanted to be better, but I didn't know what to do. And for a man, it's just so hard to speak about all the emotions. And for a man specifically, it's so hard to get that support from the society around him most of the time, because, as a man, you're expected to be that perfect father, the perfect husband, the perfect colleague, the person that has everything figured out and got everything together. But at that point, he didn't have all of that. And he had to pretend and still push through. And he told me one moment that really changed my journey was when a couple of people from that running community noticed that he's not there. And they turned, a couple of men, and they went back and they started running with him. They were almost walking at some point. And he was out of breath, but they still insisted that no one is left behind. And it's just so heartwarming to see. But can you talk to me about the community that you're hoping to build, or you're building in the Uncommon Club, and the importance of that to you?
So our slogan is "No one gets left behind," funnily enough. So I relate to that story a lot. For us, when we built kind of that Thursday morning to begin with, one of the really important things was that we were for all levels. So it is very inclusive. So it's the reason that we do 45 minutes and not a distance, right? Because when you do 45 minutes, everyone starts and finishes at the same time. And whether you walk or crawl or run, it doesn't matter to us. Like, you're welcome to join as long as you come and move with us, right? And you don't have to push hard, and you don't have to push your limits every time. You don't have to try and keep up with someone else. You just do your thing. But the most important thing is that, like, you're welcome. So that was one thing. I think the second thing is, it seems that we attract people from all walks of life. So we don't have like a specific type of person that comes to the Uncommon Club, which is what I love to see. And I've been to my share of different run clubs in Dubai and around the world, and you typically have a type of audience. So for us, what's been really important is that we're as inclusive as possible. Everyone is welcome. No person's left behind, which is what we mean by that is, like, you never really see people running alone, but you also don't see people sitting alone. Like when we have coffee and stuff after, it's no one's really like by themselves. It becomes this place where people really connect physically, which is something that I know a lot of people struggle with in Dubai, maybe with loneliness or making new friends or whatever it may be, right? Particularly because Dubai is transient and people are in and out a lot. And so that's what we've built. Like, we've built this community where, people just connect.
That's amazing to see, because specifically, as you said, Dubai is amazing. It's a very fast life. everyone is really busy with everything around them, and everyone is trying to be better and build different great futures. But at some point, you feel like you lack that personal connection, and it's very therapeutic at some point where, specifically for men, this is again from points from guests that have been on this podcast. They were telling me that sometimes they're going to that running community just to be there, and even if they don't discuss their problems, just important for them to speak to people about random things. It's very therapeutic, and with the movement as well, they go out of that specific morning feeling much better. And it becomes a motivation that I'm going there. It's my time. It's a me time that I'm hoping to get at that point.
And I think there's a few like additional little things to that. I think one is like moving your body in the morning will put you in a better mood. Like maybe, there's the sunrise and getting the daylight and like these sort of things. But the other thing is the people that you meet are very likely like-minded people, right? And I've given this example like countless times to people that I talk to where people are slowly transitioning from Friday nights and Saturday nights to mornings. And one of the reasons is, one, obviously they want a healthier life and they don't want to be out late and potentially drinking and whatever else. But the other thing is like the people that you meet in the mornings are prioritizing their health. They're open to meet new people. They're inclusive, et cetera, et cetera. So that shift is something that I love to see, particularly here in Dubai. Like I was at Kite Beach this morning, it was packed with runners, right? And I love to see that. So I think there's a lot of benefit to now what we see in Dubai and that growth of wellness.
We are reaching towards the end of our episode, unfortunately. But I really have 2 questions for you that I would love to hear your opinion on that. First, do you believe in balance in everything, or do you believe in obsession as something that is necessary for greatness?
That's such a tough question that I'm really struggling with myself. I don't believe in balance. I believe that like if, and this again is my opinion, this is not necessarily the right answer in any shape or form, but I believe if you have big dreams and big goals and you're ambitious and you're driven, your balance is going to go out the window. And I think the only important thing is to not let it be at the detriment of your mental health and to not let that be like a slippery slope going down. But no, I don't believe in balance.
And the final question, do you have like a dream legacy project, something you really want to do and it's a little bit delusional?
I think it's scaling the Uncommon Club around the world. I know it's scaling the Uncommon Club around the world. We want to build community everywhere. We know we can. And I think we have the vision, the belief, and the work ethic to make it happen.
Thank you so much, Stephan, for being with me today. I have another, like, probably 50 questions that I want to ask. It's been really a pleasure having a conversation with you. And unfortunately, I have to wrap up. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for making time to sit with me and be on Unformed podcast. And I think that's it for today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.